From the News Channel 5 Network, this is Out and About Today. Sponsored by the Tennessee Performing Arts Center.
Hello, I'm Chuck Long, and glad you've joined us for a special holiday edition of Out and About Today. We've got a fun show tonight. My co-hosts Brent and Pam will join me to look at some entertainment highlights of the year on Buzz About, including which LGBTQ plus artist had some major breakthroughs. But up first, one of our favorites, author Greg Howard, an Edgar Award nominee for his bestseller The Whispers, is back with an incredible new book, The Visitors. Great to see you, Greg.
Great to be here, Chuck.
So excited about so many things. I've read this book, already one of my favorites. We're going to talk about it in depth. It's a powerful book. It's a mystery. It's suspenseful. It's a ghost story. It's got so much to it. But first, before we get into talking about The Visitors, I wanted to mention something that happened recently. Laura Ingraham, host on one of the shows on the Fox network, she was doing an interview with some of her panelists, and they were talking about banned books and books that are on those lists in the schools, and they talked about your book in particular, Middle School's a Drag. Let's take a look at it, and we'll talk about it on the backside.
Now, Sean, Kelsey Stoyanova, named 2022 Teacher of the Year by the Maine Department of Education, released a reading list that included a book called Middle School's a Drag, and it concerns an enterprising boy who starts his own junior talent agency and signs a 13-year-old aspiring drag queen as his first client. Sean, how pervasive is that in our schools?
Yeah, it's very factual. I mean, I spent a lot of time on this, what I would call a woke book list, and really did my homework. She gets an F for this particular book list. Her book list is full of anti-father, transgender, LGBTQ, critical race theory books, and sexual education. And frankly, it's just sickening.
Okay, so what was your reaction when you saw that, Greg?
Well, shock for one. Just that see my book, on the screen on Fox News was kind of bizarre and surreal. I didn't really feel any anger or anything because I've dealt with these kind of things before, but I just kind of was like rolling my eyes like, well, if I'm getting dissed on Fox News, I must be doing something right.
Yeah, exactly. So, and hopefully that's going to prompt a lot of people to go out and buy the book, which I think it's already doing, because you were also contacted. I know you're contacted by a number of people, but one in particular was a school board director in Pennsylvania. Tell me about that email that you received.
Yeah, that's actually how I found out about the clip. The person told me they just finished reading Middle School's a Drag. They loved it. They thought it was amazing. They were so glad that it was available for kids. And had they been a middle school gay boy, they would have just felt so seen with that book, and said they saw it, they learned about it because they were dealing with some banned book issues in their district, and they were watching the Laura Ingraham show as kind of reconnaissance when she threw my book up there, and this person thought, well, I need to go get that and read it, and now they are recommending that it be added to the circulation of all their middle and high schools in that district. So thanks, Laura.
Yeah, exactly. That's great. So go out and get that as well. Incredible book. You released it during the pandemic. I know you were here a couple of years ago. We were talking about that. Little did we know, that the pandemic was going to do what it did. But anyway, it's an incredible book, as is your latest. It comes out soon, The Visitors. Tell me kind of a brief synopsis. I mean, there's so much to it, but a brief synopsis of it first.
Yeah, there's a lot there, but it basically centers around the ghost of a 12-year-old boy who finds himself stuck on this deserted rice plantation. He doesn't know how long he's been there. He doesn't really even remember who he is. And most importantly, he doesn't know how to move on from this place, this kind of depressing, sad, kind of scary place. Until some modern day kids from the present day show up, and they're about his age, and they're investigating a decades-old mystery that starts sparking some memories to fire up in his brain and help him to remember what happened. He feels like if he could just remember what happened, he'll be able to move on. So it's about these kids trying to help the spirit of this kid figure out what he did, what happened to him, and to move on from this place.
It really is an incredible book, and I've told you that. From the first paragraph, I was hooked. I never got off the roller coaster the entire read. It was a fast page turner. It really engaged me the entire time. I loved it, loved it, loved it. Got to ask you, how was it born? Where did it come from?
Well, I actually grew up in my hometown, of Georgetown, South Carolina is where I set the book. And I did grow up right down the road from this old deserted rice plantation. And me and my friends would ride our bikes down there. And, it was supposedly haunted. We think it was haunted. And we would have, we'd go exploring and to get a little scare out of the whole situation. But that's part of the reason why I wrote it. But I also have just been so heartbroken to see in the news more and more kids, especially younger age kids, who are, viewing suicide as their only option. And a lot of them are being bullied for being queer or for being perceived to be queer. And that is leading them to start going to some dark places in their mind. And in the middle grade world, the kind of books I write, that's just really not talked about a lot. Some people deem it inappropriate for that age group. But I've always looked at it like, I got to meet the kids where they are, and kids are going through this, and I don't want them to feel alone. So I kind of wanted to marry those two ideas, which is how a lot of my books, come to being. I have a setting or something I want to explore, and then I have just this idea I think needs to be included and kind of mesh them together. And that's kind of how the story was born. And
Greg, we're going to go a little bit longer in this segment and a little shorter in the next, because I wanted to talk to you about something that you were just talking about right there, and it's important that we do, I think, bring this up. But in the author's notes, and they're very touching, powerful author's notes, so I know everybody's going to want to read the author's notes after they finish The Visitors, but one of the things that you actually address in those author's notes is suicide, and you basically say, I was around 12 years old when I began viewing death as a solution to my problems. So tell me a little bit about you talking about that. I know it's difficult to bring up, but I think it's important.
Well, it's very important. And, kids are living this today. I grew up in the 70s. I hate to age myself, but, a 12-year-old in the 70s in a very religious, kind of a religiously oppressive environment. My mother, had passed away when I was young. We had an abusive stepmother. That was part of the issue. I was dealing, obviously, with some undiagnosed and untreated depression, and then just the kind of the shame that I felt for being attracted to other boys and knowing that I couldn't talk about that. And all that comes from not seeing yourself. I didn't see myself in books. I didn't see myself in movies or in magazines or on television. So therefore, you feel like something is very wrong with you. I was dealing with these things, and I thought about death a lot, even at 12 years old. And I asked my boyfriend recently, did you ever think about death? And if so, how old were you? And he said, yeah, I started thinking about death when I was 12 years old. So, this is an age where kids are dealing with this, and I dealt with it. So I feel like if I dealt with it, I know kids out there are dealing with it today.
Yeah, and I think it's important that we talk about it, and I think it's important that people have someone that they can talk to about it, which is probably one of the most important things. So we appreciate you bringing that up, and also wanted to mention there is a great book launch event that's going to be taking place very soon. We want to make sure that everybody gets out there, supports this book. There it is, the Visitors Book Launch event. Greg's going to be there in person. It's Monday, January 31st, 6:30 p.m. at Parnassus Books. So put that on your calendar. All right, well, we have to take a short break, but when we come back, Greg picks his favorite books of the year. You're watching Out and About Today.